Hello, welcome in. Today I'm wearing my professor hat to talk about some things that are going on in our universities and schools overall, especially for Black people. All right, I am Dr. Darnise, and welcome into another edition of Dr. Darnise's House of Religion, Magic, and Conjure. Today we'll be talking about African American studies, African American religions, and how that's playing out in our universities today. So probably you're aware, I did make a video about what's happening in Florida under that governor and some other states in terms of how they are labeling our history, Black history, as critical race theory and saying that it's not important and therefore universities should not be teaching it. Middle school through high school should not be teaching it, and in the process we get erased. So this video isn't so much about that, it's about how that's affecting our youth. And so if you're a parent, this may come across as kind of harsh to you, but I can't stress enough how important it is that you as a parent take upon yourself to educate your own children about our history. Obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but I am a history buff and I, stay in African American religion, African American history in general. And so when your children come to me as young adults in the college classroom, they pretty much know nothing. Let me reiterate that. They pretty much know nothing about African American history and African American religions. We're starting from almost ground zero, meaning I'm starting from almost ground zero in the college classroom. This generation, Gen Z, for a lot of reasons they're struggling, and I'll get to that. For a lot of reasons they're struggling. But what that looks like in the classroom is it's much harder for them to get, for me as a professor, to go very far in terms of educating them because they come with at almost a remedial level of education. So they know who Martin Luther King Jr. was. Barely. They don't know who Malcolm X was. That's it. They don't know who Malcolm X was. If they have anything, what they know is, or what they have been taught is, he was the violent one. He was radical, militant, and he got shot. Okay, so now in the classroom, that means for me, as I teach about Black nationalism, about the Nation of Islam in particular, and Malcolm in particular, I've got to cover the whole reason why Black nationalism even existed, right? So I'd go back to the origins of Black nationalism under Garvey and go, through the origin of the Nation of Islam and the Moorish Science Temple. A whole lot of groundwork I got to cover. Used to be, I was working with a student body who at least has some of that information. They know Garvey. They have heard of Black nationalism, and so we were already on a similar playing field. These kids did nothing. And so what I'm saying to you is we cannot at all rest upon public education to teach our kids about us. It's not happening. It's not happening. And so you as a parent have to take it upon yourself to have some kind of, I don't know what, you need books in your house. You need to get your kids to read books. That means create summer projects or what have you. Watch documentaries together. There's a bunch of Malcolm X documentaries on Netflix. The series Godfather of Harlem, which is on, it was on Epix, now it's on MGM Plus. You're going to have to invest in some of these streaming services if you want these documentaries. There's a bunch of them on YouTube, for free. But you have to be intentional, because gone are the days when we can expect a public school system to educate our kids about our history. They're not going to do it. Clearly. Not only are they not going to do it, in certain states, Texas, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi that come to mind right now, they're determining that it's not even important. They're whitewashing history, they're revising history. They don't want to talk about slavery at all. In some places, textbooks are being rewritten so that slavery looks like indentured servitude and that it was somehow mutual. So the youngest ones who are in school, the goal is to teach them that slavery wasn't so bad. That's the goal. We're dealing with white fragility. So a lot of white people do not want to have to deal with the legacy that their forefathers left them in terms of how white supremacy has functioned and how it's an institution in our country. They don't want to deal with that because it makes them uncomfortable and it makes their children, their grandchildren uncomfortable in the classroom. So what slave masters did back in the day was prohibit black people from reading, right? No literacy for you. Now what it looks like is these governors are saying, I'm not going to let you know your history. It's the same thing. It's Jim Crow, right? And that's why I'm saying to you, if you're a parent, it has to be your own responsibility. They're your children. And it's us as a community, meaning black people as a community. We can't drop the ball on our history and say, well, they didn't teach my kids in school, and that's, horrible that they didn't teach my kids. They're not going to. They've demonstrated decade after decade after decade after decade that they're not invested in teaching our kids about our history. We've always had to do the utmost, right? And so let me tell you from the classroom, as I said, they don't know anything. Or very little, I should say. They know very little, and I have to find out every semester, every class. I have to kind of figure out what is the common groundwork and build my curriculum based upon the students who present. And I teach at a very, I guess you'd say prestigious school, not an Ivy League, but prestigious. It costs a lot of money to go here in LA, and so we're talking about a lot of kids who've even had private school, and they still don't know it. It's not valued in these United States of America. You already know that. Our history is not valued. So why would K through 12 spend time and the precious resources that they have and don't have teaching about us? And especially teaching about African American religion? Oh no. You get the black church. Black people became Christian under slavery, and it's better that they became Christian under slavery because they were heathens back in Africa. That's what they get. So a channel like mine right now, when I talk about our traditions and stuff, that's how, I think why some of you come here, because you're learning some things that you didn't know before as adults. Well, with our children, we can do something about that ourselves. So in the classroom, young people show up this way because Gen Z has some issues, or they're very different. As a generation, generally speaking, of course, you may have some young people in your life who are doing pretty well, they're managing, but I'm sure you've noticed that they're different. I'm sure you've noticed that they have, we say that they're fragile. Gen Z is fragile. Their mental health is fragile. They are walking around balls full of anxiety. And that shows up in the classroom where they don't understand that there are consequences to their actions. I'm not even joking. They feel like, a deadline? I don't have to meet a deadline. So if I turn in my paper late, I can still turn in my paper late, right? No. If you do, there's a penalty. Well, why is there a penalty? I still turn it in because I said there's a deadline, and the deadline is this date. Oh, but I had so and so and so going on. I had this going on, or I couldn't come to class that day because I had an attack of anxiety. Okay, I understand all that, but here's your late deduction, or I'm not going to accept it at all because you missed the deadline. They're shocked. They don't understand. So, and I'm that professor. I'm like, well, you're going to learn today. Because you need to start learning. Our kids have been overprotected. This is what the research is showing. There's a video I just watched called What's Wrong with Gen Z? And it's where we now have research to say what has gone on with them throughout their childhood up to young adulthood right now. What's been going on with them so that they present in such a way. They've been overprotected. They've been micromanaged. They have not had the opportunity to self-manage, to experience age-appropriate independence as children. These researchers say around the ages of 8 or 9 years old, children need to start finding ways in which they can make their own decisions and be somewhat independent. They need to start practicing that so that as teens they continue to build upon the independence, right? Like as parents, you know, you're not going to always be here. Your job, part of your job as a parent, is to make sure your kids are able to cope in this world without you. Without you. So what has been happening is these kids are growing up in a world where they don't know how to cope without their parents. So now they're 19, 20 years old. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to get themselves up in the morning and get to class. They don't understand that if you miss an assignment or you turn it in late, you're going to have some negative consequences. They don't understand that you're expected to participate for real, IRL, in life because they're so used to being passive observers because of devices. They are used to scrolling and just interacting with things in a very passive way. So when we're in class and I go, no, you have to actually say something out loud, they're like, but I have anxiety, I can't. Well, then you're going to have a problem in your grade because participation is 10% of your grade. But I attended. Attendance is not the same as participation. You see, it's a different word. I have to literally break it down. Attendance is attendance. Participation means you are here and you verbally participate. Well, how is that fair, they'll say. And then I have to share it with them. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but the world doesn't care about your shyness or your anxiety. When I was a kid, we called it shyness, and I was very shy myself. I was a very shy child. And at a certain point, I had to push myself out of it. My mother was always pushing me to do more. You got to push your kid past their comfort zone because what's happening in college is they're crumbling. They're crumbling under the pressure, and that's only exacerbating their mental health issues. Our university psychological support services is overwhelmed because, as I'm saying, it's a generational thing. It's not just one or two. It's not just a handful. It's not just me. It is a generational thing. And student psychological services and universities from coast to coast are having they're just overwhelmed. So more is bouncing back into student affairs and to faculty to manage. Personally, I've seen 2 students have breakdowns, absolute breakdowns. Why? The pressure, stress. Everything is triggering. They say that. Everything triggers me. I'm overwhelmed. My anxiety. Everything is triggering. Everybody's gaslighting me. What? So what I'm saying is, and I share this with you as a professor, so I've got multiple concerns here. One is a professor in the classroom wanting our history, of course, to survive, for us to tell our own stories, for our kids to have our history, for our communities to have our history. Yes. Also, as an adult watching young people suffer, struggle, how do we help that? Well, we can't keep passing the buck because they're imploding in front of our eyes. But we also have to, I say, you've also got to take the perspective that as a parent, you're going to push your kid the way we were pushed. It doesn't, of course, not abusively, age appropriate, because remember, they've got to go off to college without you. They've got to be in this world without you. A colleague of mine, he has a student where the parents are calling him. Now, your kid is an adult. After 18, they're an adult. And as college professors, we don't have to talk to you as the parent. Your child has rights because they're now an adult. They have privacy rights. In this case, my colleague says that this student waived his rights so that his parents can talk to his professor and his professor can talk to his parents. Well, this student didn't come to class regularly, missed a lot of class, missed all the deadlines, missed the last, assignment. And after the fact, now this class is over, semester is over, He and his parents want the professor to accept his late work and to grade it and to give him a better grade. But I said, it's over. It's over. Grades are in the books. This school year is over. The parents are trying to bargain for the professor to bend to their will. And of course, my colleague's like, no, I'm not doing that. Your child did not do what he needs to do. Who's not a child, right? He's an adult now. He did not do what he needs to do, and so now he's going to fail. And this is why I'm saying they're struggling, because they don't understand that. They don't understand that if I don't do my work, I'm going to fail. Like, they don't understand that. Okay, so likewise, I had a student who just emailed me a couple days ago. Our final grades had to be in May the 10th. We had final exams the first week of May. Final grades were due May 10th. This student writes me on May the 15th to ask me, can he do extra credit work? Because he feels like he learned more in my class and should not have an F. But I know that I did really badly on my quizzes and my work, but I feel that I learned better, so I should not have an F. This is what they say, I feel like I should have better. And I reminded him, the school year is over. Grades have been submitted. Because you feel like you did better, you're on your assignments and quizzes, you did not. You failed them all. You didn't reach out for help either. You just came to class. Yes, you did come to class regularly, and you sat there in the class and you failed. And then I ended it by saying, by the way, school year is over. I'm not checking my email here regularly because I'm on summer break. Bye. So I say that to say as examples. This is how they show up in class at school, not understanding that their behavior, their lack of understanding is going to cause them some negative consequences. And so now they're being hit. They feel like hit on all sides because they're asked to be, somewhat independent adults, and they're asked to do this schoolwork. And they're not used to all of these requirements and deadlines. And so it is contributing to their anxiety and overall mental health challenges. So start educating your kids as early as possible in terms of reading books, watching historical documentaries. That has to be something that you take on. School system's not going to do it. I don't care what you think about what they should do. They're not going to do it. They haven't been doing it. They're not going to do it. You have to do it. And if you have a kid, K through 12, do not go to your teacher, your child's teacher, and yell at them. Their hands are tied. You've probably have seen there's a massive teacher walkout that's happening from coast to coast because teachers have had it. They've had it with administrators, with parents who are not doing anything in the home front, coming and yelling at them that they have to pass these kids who in many cases, don't read well, don't have good reading comprehension, don't have good math skills. Parents and administrators are like, oh, just pass them through, just pass them through, just pass them through. Well, then they come to college and they meet me. I don't pass through. I'm telling you, I do not. You get an F. So, and you're spending money for that. Fail a class, you got to take that class again, which means you got to pay more, right? Overall, think of it as a systemic shift where people who have more, people who are privileged, people who are elite, people who have a lot of money, who run the corporations, what are they doing to our society? They are creating a permanent underclass. And that underclass is people who largely went to public school, who have to take low-paying, service-oriented jobs because they could not go to college. They did not finish college for whatever reasons, a lot of them because they lack the academic skills to get through college. And so what is left for them as someone with only a high school diploma? Low-level service jobs where they will be struggling all of their lives economically, right? The kids who are more privileged, who have private school education, who have parents who are already somewhat well off, They'll be the managers, they'll be the owners. And so a lot of us, black and brown, you will end up along the bottom, a permanent underclass. It doesn't benefit us to just kind of sit back and be like, oh well, they'll figure it out. Your kids don't catch up. Some parents are like, oh, my kid will catch up. They don't catch up on their own. How do you catch up on your own? You know, for myself, I always struggled in math. I struggled in math myself when I was a kid. My mother went to the teacher and made the teacher give me more worksheets to do for homework, right? We had worksheets back then, right? And the solution was practice, 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 practice. So I had to do the thing I hated the most, which was math. I had to do more and more and more of that. So I'm just saying, you know, as a parent, my mother stepped in because she saw that happening. What you can now do, though, is understand that you got to step in, because it's bigger than just your kid. It's more of a societal issue that's happening. It's more of a, what is my child's future going to look like overall? And we know black and brown, low-level service jobs and wages, and or prison. It's that serious. Because I'm telling you what I'm looking at in college classrooms of people who are not capable. They tell me they have short attention spans and can't read a book. Short attention spans and can't read a book, Dr. Martin. You want us to read this whole thing? Yes. Do you want a whole diploma or do you want half a diploma? Why you take off points because I misspelled the person's name? I mean, I had it right, but I just misspelled their name. How about if I misspell your name on your diploma or on your passport or on your driver's license? What happens if your name is misspelled? What if I just call you by a name I make up in class? Oh. Struggling with the basic stuff. So anyway, let me wrap this up because the video is now getting to be over 22 minutes long. And I don't know how many of y'all are with long haul, but if you're on the long haul team, let me know that. And definitely let me know your comments, what you're seeing in your own children, what you're seeing in Gen Z, yourselves, what you propose. Again, it's kind of like not much of an option as parents. You just have to be involved. And again, don't go beat up the high school teacher. They can't do very much. And they're leaving the profession, which also comes back to you as a parent. What are you going to do when you have children in school and there's a teacher shortage and now the teachers who remain have classes of 40, 50 students? Your child is not going to get the education that they would get. What happens when teaching, the school week goes down to 4 days? And on that 5th day, you have to do something about childcare. That's going to be an extra expense in your household. Also, your kid is not getting the education they need. They're not getting the skills. Don't forget that part. They're not getting their skills. They can't catch up. I think I started to say, they can't catch up on their own. What they miss, unless there's an intervention. If you know your child is struggling with something, get them a tutor, ask somebody else in the family to help. Takes a village, right? Get some tutoring. Because it doesn't fix itself. For some reason, parents think, oh, it'll fix himself. Oh, Johnny will catch up. How is Johnny going to catch up? Johnny doesn't know algebra. Johnny's not going to wake up one day and know algebra. Suddenly algebra downloaded. No. Johnny needs help with algebra. So anyway, now I'm going on some more. You see, I'm very passionate about this because I am an educator and I actually care about our history and I care about our young people. I care about the success of our communities, and so I want to instill how serious a matter it is where we are in terms of education in this country and who's getting left out. Jim Crow is up, raging now. Obviously, you know, Jim Crow is raging across our country, and in education it's showing up where we are not going to teach anything about your history. We're going to literally whitewash it. Okay, so again, give me your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. And yeah, I guess, make sure you're, subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. Maybe you want to share this video with some other people you think can benefit from it. And yeah, that's it. Bye for now.